Welcome to Phone Booth Fighting, everybody. I'm Richard Hunter, and he is Frank Muir, guerrilla style again for this episode because I am at the brothel just outside of Las Vegas, and Frank, you are in Scotland.
I am. I'm up here in Aberdeen.
All right, explain. I thought Aberdeen was in Washington. Are you sure you're in Scotland?
I think so. We flew in after I got done with the ACB. I was in Almaty. And I met the wife and kids and Britta. They all came up here and they flew into Aberdeen. And I guess I'm about an hour north, I think, of Aberdeen. I'm up here at the Gordon Castle. So it's part of the Gordon Castle still here that they haven't tore down over the centuries. And my friend Corey Mills invited us up here with the family. And there's just, those other families up here with their kids. And we're just all hanging out, hunting, fishing, drinking whiskey.
So you were holed up in a Scottish castle is what's going on.
I am.
Okay.
We had bagpipes last night going on.
All right. And this podcast episode is coming to you courtesy of WhatsApp audio. I think it's the first time we've used the WhatsApp audio feature. If you're wondering where our YouTube videos have gone the last couple episodes, we've sort of had to do it this way. We'll be back with those next week, but these last couple episodes are audio only for the logistical reasons of, for a lot of reasons, but for one, it's right about the end of my work day, but it's like 1 a.m. or something over there, right?
It is. We're a little bit ahead of you guys time-wise.
Yeah. How is the future looking? Anything I should be aware of? Anything I should avoid?
No storms. You're okay.
Maybe any stock tips? Maybe anything I should invest in? I guess that would be considered insider trading, but,
Only if we tell somebody about it, right?
Yeah. So you're over there in the Scottish castle, and I'm doing my normal thing here at the brothel. I got a good brothel story for you, if you'd like a good international brothel story. Yeah.
Everybody likes the brothel.
Let's do that after you tell them a little bit about Low T Nation, Frank. LowTNation.com. Why is it important for our male listeners to take the time to log on to the website and maybe use the phone number to call up Brandon and Jason over there and see if they can do for themselves what so many of our phone booth fighting listeners have already done?
Well, just that way you can make sure that you're feeling at your best, you're optimal. Right now we have tools and science and medicine available to make sure that, as a man, that you're able to operate at 100% and you're not, lacking in any way. And so with that being said, Brandon and, are one of the best ones, and Jason are so knowledgeable in what's going on, how to deal with, as we age and the body starts to decline in certain areas, what to do about it. And so super convenient, super knowledgeable. I think it's one of the best processes out there.
What you do is you go to lowtnation.com. You can hit them up via email or phone, and they will put you in touch with a lab in your area, no matter where you're located in the United States. Some quick lab work is done, submitted to the guys at Low T Nation, and then they let you know if you are a candidate for their testosterone therapy treatment. We're hearing from more and more listeners every week who not only qualify for the treatment but are taking advantage of it. And Frank, one of the things you always like to point out is that it can't be any more convenient, because once you do the initial lab work, everything is sent directly to your front door.
That's absolutely true. You're only going to be as successful as you set yourself up to be. So one of the most successful things you can do with the company, what they do is that they drop it directly off to you, so you don't have to worry about catching up with any kind of doctor's appointments, meeting up with any type of appointments to you have to travel around if you're already a busy guy. So I think it's one of the greatest things, and it's so convenient.
Log on to lowtnation.com and get in touch with Jason and Brandon, a couple of phone booth fighting listeners just like yourself, to see if you're a candidate for their treatment. Let them know Frank and Richard sent you. Also, we are brought to you by Earth's Brew, the plant-based nirvana, relaxation fusing the best of all worlds, those being health, taste, efficacy, and experience. Frank, Earth's Brew's been with us for quite a while. Speaking of loyal Phone Booth Fighting listeners. And they have a great plant-based powder to mix into just a simple glass of water that turns that simple glass of water into a relaxation, all-natural beverage. I enjoy that stuff before I go to sleep. You and I both use it after jiu-jitsu training, and it's a nice way to relax the body, but not having to be concerned about what you're putting in your body in terms of a lot of chemicals and preservatives, artificial sweeteners, and substances that do not exist in Earth's Brew.
True. And it's one thing, it's compatible with any diet that you can think of that you're going to be a part of, whether it's paleo, vegetarian,
keto,
vegan, you're
all
going to be able to. That way, you know that you're not going to have to be making any compromises and be able to live, your life already how you do it. Just use as an additional tool.
Right now, they've got a great offer. If you go to earthsbrew.com and you enter the promo code PhoneBooth, that's promo code PhoneBooth at earthsbrew.com, they will give you 10% off of all orders at checkout just for being a Phone Booth Fighting listener. Thanks to earthsbrew.com for their support of Phone Booth Fighting. All right, Frank, where should we start? We have some fights to talk about. Some fights happened this past weekend. You got a little noise in the background there. Is there any? I imagine Scottish castles are going to be echoey and loud.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying to. I'm about as far away as I can get from the people.
Okay. Very good.
Losing Wi-Fi.
Okay, do what you can. We got some fights to talk about that happened over this weekend. I've got a good brothel story. We got some interesting news items. Where do you want to start? You pick, Frank. Where do you want to start?
I think the brothel story is where everybody wants to go.
All right. Well, since I'm here at the brothel, I'll pull back the curtain and tell you a little quick story about a prostitute that we had to bid adieu to. We had to tell her that maybe this line of work was not exactly cut out for her. So we got a girl in here that she was a very naturally pretty girl, Frank. She was like, I don't know, I think she was probably 22 maybe, or 21 or something like that. And just one of the more naturally pretty girls I had ever seen come through here. And she was a nice girl and didn't cause us a lot of problems, because sometimes they do. Sometimes they're a little high maintenance. But, this will give you an idea of kind of the human side of all this, and when we have to sort of realize that maybe this isn't the best place for them to be, is we were having trouble with her at night sort of incoherently screaming at someone. Not real sure who it was. Could have been on the phone, or could have just been an imaginary voice in her head. But it was like...
You're telling me that you have a girl working at the brothel that has mental problems?
Well, I'm no doctor, Frank, but my amateur assessment diagnosis would be exactly that. So I was hearing about it, right? I was hearing stories from the girls, because it was mostly happening late at night when I wasn't here. And they're like, yeah, of course, they all thought she was screaming on the phone to her pimp, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Quick side note. Some of the girls maintain some sort of relationships with these street pimps. And if we find out about that, we have zero tolerance for that. We do not allow that here. So we pimps are people who are exempt from the legal side of the business, because you have to have a license, a privileged license, a very hard to get license to run a brothel. So street pimps aren't going to be able to qualify for that, but it's really weird because they a lot of times can maintain this sort of really irrational, psychological hold they have over these girls. So occasionally we do find situations where the girls are still, in touch with them or in a relationship with them or something like that. We have to let them go. Now that's that case. That's not necessarily what we found here, although it might have been. So I heard her just ranting, just screaming into, and not screaming like the house is rocking, business is good, sex party kind of thing. I'm not talking about like that. I'm talking about like just going, "Arr, arr," like that, right? And I go running down the hallway because I was afraid something was going wrong, like we had a security issue going on or something. And I run in the room, and she's just standing there, kind of in tears, but also infuriated, red face, just screaming at the top of her lungs, sort of in the general direction of her phone, although there doesn't appear to be anybody on the line at the moment. And I look down at her phone. Now, keep in mind, Frank, this girl, 21, 22, very pretty. You know how you have a picture of Mrs. Muir on the front of your phone?
Right.
Right. I have a picture of Jennifer on the front of mine, not yours, different Jennifer. This girl had a picture of a guy. When I looked down on it, I was pretty sure if it wasn't the actual guy, it was a dead ringer for Floyd Mayweather Sr. So all I could think of was like, wow, is that who all of this is over? And she was apologetic and sorry for the disturbance and all that kind of stuff. But I actually had to say to her, I think there's some things going on here mentally, emotionally, that don't make this a good place for you. And I'm worried about you, and I think the best thing is for you to just take some time for you. And let's leave the house and go find yourself and maybe seek some professional counseling and that sort of thing. So for anyone who thinks that we don't have like a genuine side in terms of, everybody's a commodity and we're just going to make money off of them or whatever, believe it or not, sometimes you have to look at somebody and go, oh boy, I don't think they're emotionally stable enough for prostitution.
That's too funny.
It was weird. It was an uncomfortable conversation to have, and she seemed all manner of out of sorts, but I have no idea who she was yelling at. Like I said, I don't know if that was a multiple personality situation or what.
There's no way to figure it out what was going on, huh?
Probably if I would have indulged her, if I would have continued the conversation further, I just felt like brevity was best in that instance. Because sometimes, especially when you tell them they may have to leave, you want to do it without a lot of fanfare, because that's sometimes when it can break bad on you.
Well, I'm surprised as much of a sympathetic and empathetic human being you are.
Yeah.
You didn't delve into it a little bit deeper.
Well, it depends on if I think they're.
Are you starting to try to fix the whole world?
No. I still have the eventual goal of that. No, I think.
This girl could be seriously needed medication, and now you sent her on her way.
Well, she was on medication already, so she did come already medicated. So I didn't feel completely bad about that, and it's not like we set her out by the curb. I made sure she had like a safe place to go and things like that. But it's tough, I imagine it, being a little bit like a therapist, in the sense that, that therapist hears about a lot of people's problems, and, the people who really do want help will get it and will take advantage of it, but they're not all going to be success stories, and sometimes as that therapist, I would think you have to go, well, I can do as much as I can do, and at some point I may have to make the tough decision to just say, best of luck to you. You all right? Oh my gosh, what's going on over there, Frank? Are you okay? Did you drop the phone?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, the Wi-Fi sometimes goes out, so if it does, I'll call you back.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We got fights to talk about.
Pick castle walls.
Yes, understand. Probably not designed in an era where Wi-Fi penetrating room to room was a primary concern.
No, I think they said this place started getting built in like 1468. So I don't think Wi-Fi was a concern.
They were probably more concerned about like how to keep the Black Plague from going room to room. They were probably thinking the opposite. Like, let's make very thick walls.
I think that's definitely more the mindset around here.
Yeah,
tall and thick.
Yeah. So we had some fights here stateside that you missed, Frank, while you were over there this weekend. Right after you and I recorded our last episode, Ray Borg pulled out of his fight with Demetrius Johnson, so we did not get a record-breaking flyweight title defense. And for Ray Borg, I mean, he pulled out, I think, even before weight. He didn't even try to make weight or anything. He just said officially that the UFC doctors were not going to clear him to try to fight. But, man, not only did it cost that card the main event, it cost him his money. It cost him his title shot. And they say that Demetrius had said that they're maybe going to try to reschedule it for October. But, Borg is a guy now. He's had 2 prior weight misses in his past. And now this. I mean, I worry, Frank, for Ray Borg that, boy, this is a real potential recipe to just kind of fall out of mind for a lot of people.
No, very true. I think it's a point where the company's going to, they lose money when a main event like this gets, scrapped. And so had he not had the history of missing weight 2 other times, where he was even allowed a 1-pound variance, knowing that he had to make, flyweight at 125 right on the dot, I know that I'm reading that it was a viral infection, that he was sick, but, you can't help but wonder, was it because of the weight cut that started? Was it sapping him? It kind of gives you less room for, a little less wiggle room, a little less credit, So I think that, this just kind of gets heaped into another situation where a fight's scrapped because you didn't make it happen. Giving him a title shot. I know I heard that, Demetrius talked about maybe rescheduling it. If they do it the next 2 or 3 weeks, that, he would take the fight. But if not, he's going to take the rest of the year off.
Yeah.
So, that's really detrimental to, the UFC to have the champion put on the shelf and, have a main event scrapped like that. And then it wasn't like I didn't get to catch the full fight, but I was at the airport and I got to watch the first 3 rounds before I had to catch a flight of the main event with Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko. And, it was a technical kind of feeling out type of fight. And I think Shevchenko, did some good things. I thought Amanda did some decent things, but it wasn't exactly from what I saw, unless it got drastically more exciting in the 4th and 5th round. It was, it seemed a little bit on the lackluster side.
Yeah, it hurt the card with Mighty Mouse and Ray Borg pulling out. We're getting a lot of noise there.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to tell them.
Okay. It hurt with that main event getting pulled off, because it's one of those things where, Nunes and Shevchenko wasn't going to be a real strong main event to carry a pay-per-view on its own anyway. And the one thing you could say about it is, well, they've put 2 title fights together, so it's got kind of a twofer, feel, and those combined, maybe will draw some buys. And I think the attention around Mighty Mouse's shot at history was going to be a big part of that. Now, he was going.
I think it was the biggest part of it.
I agree. Now, he was going into the fight as a 10-1 favorite too, so it's not like it was even expected to be particularly competitive. But Borg was one of the few guys in the division that Mighty Mouse hadn't already gone through as far as top contenders, and so it made sense to put him in that. But from Borg's perspective, I just worry that everything that was stacked up against him going into that fight is even more stacked up against him in terms of trying to stay top of mind. It's not some great rivalry like McGregor and Diaz or something where you can just, bring up the 2 names together, a year or so down the line and people are going to be as interested, is my thought.
No, 100%. I think Ray Borg was awarded, what's the word I'm looking for here? He was, able to take, the opportunity was really afforded him because of circumstances.
Yep.
He was, basically at this point, Demetrius has smashed everybody that is of name recognition at flyweight. He already has multiple victories over Joseph Benavidez, John Dodson. He's already beaten, I forgot our Olympic gold medalist's name.
Oh, Henry Cejudo.
So yeah, Cejudo, who's looking good, and maybe that fight can accumulate again. But I mean,
Yeah.
he's already beat him. So
Yeah.
Ray Borg was at least somebody that was having some success, and at least it was a name. And really, it was. I mean, not to sound like a dick, but I mean, this fight really wasn't even about a potential for, Demetrius. It could have been anybody on the other side of that marquee. We just needed somebody of some credibility, and Ray Borg did possess that. He's a credible opponent, but it's not like he. A barn burner busted onto the scene and people want to see him fight for the title. It was that, I mean, in fact, I don't think if Demetrius Johnson at any moment, a couple months ago would have said, yeah, let me go ahead and just do the TJ Dillashaw and humored that, we wouldn't even be talking about Ray Borg.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think especially for in Ray Borg's case, they need to get this fight rescheduled as quickly as possible, and I think Demetrius wants it rescheduled. I think he had everything set just the way he wanted it. Record-breaking potential defense against a natural flyweight and a top-ranked contender and everything, and I don't think he wants to see this go away either. So I'm sure that they're going to do everything they can to try to get it rescheduled for next month here in Las Vegas. By the way, earlier I said Demetrius was a 10-1 favorite. You know what? He was a minus 1,000 when I saw the odds. Am I doing the math right? Do you understand that any better than I do? Because I'm not a gambler. Is minus 1,000 the same as like 10? Can you call it 10-1, or is it different? Do you know?
You know what? I can't honestly. I think it's the same thing. I think the math works right, because that means that basically you would have to bet $1,000 to win 100.
Right. So that's
to me, I mean, that's a tenfold difference. And
yeah, maybe one of our degenerate gambler listeners will let us know for sure on this, but I think it's something like that. Anyway.
That's funny. Growing up in Vegas, born and raised.
Yeah,
I'm not good at playing poker. I don't put money. I've lost maybe $100, maybe $150 to the slot machines over the course of my life.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, I'm looking around, there's nothing to do. All right, here's $20.
Yeah.
Let me occupy my time for 15 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was definitely a prohibitive favorite. I feel safe in saying that. Now, you mentioned earlier that Demetrius is given the situation 2 weeks to work itself out. He is now with First Round Management, which are your managers, Malky and Abe Kawa. And he told, I believe it was MMA Junkie, told that he's letting them try to work out getting him paid for this fight, because a lot of times the UFC will, if it gets all the way to the point where a fighter is in town 4-fight week, starts to do the press, all that kind of stuff, and then the fight is canceled, which is what happened in this situation, then the fighter who didn't have to pull out, a lot of times they'll still get them paid. But I guess the caveat is they haven't always done that when it's been a title fight, because the title fights typically pay a lot more. So that being said, what do you think his chances are of getting paid, even though he didn't actually have to do the fight?
Well, I think that they're probably going to be pretty good. I mean, just the only thing that he has kind of going against him is that, Malky's down there in Miami. And last time I texted him, the power was out and the windows were boarded. So, not that, Abe can't step in and take over and help out. He's up there with him in Canada. But at the same time, I think the Cowboys might have their plate a little full with other things right now. Hopefully, once, the storm is over with, they can regroup, then they can start approaching that. But right now, as this was going on, it was just, Irma was a bigger concern than Ray Borg. Yeah.
Well, I hope it works out. Hope we get to see Mighty Mouse here in October in Vegas next month. There were some other fight announcements made for the big Madison Square Garden card coming up the month after that on November 4th, UFC 217. We finally got the on-again, off-again, then on-again fight between Michael Bisping and George St. Pierre rescheduled for the main event. They will fight for Bisping's middleweight title. How important do you think this fight is, Frank? I mean, people like Luke Rockhold, who have former champions and contenders who have seen GSP jump the line coming out of retirement to fight for the middleweight title, are kind of bent out of shape about it. But it also does seem that it comes at a time where the UFC, needs to either establish or reestablish some star power, guys like GSP. At the moment where we don't know exactly when we're going to see Conor McGregor back in an octagon. Ronda Rousey's presumably retired. Kind of need George St. Pierre back probably from a marketing standpoint. What do you think?
Well, I think now the UFC's just gone in a trend where it's purely about selling tickets. I think that's, it's not about who the best fighters are anymore, facing each other. How could you even, in what other sport where a guy comes out of retirement, even if we were playing tennis, you don't get your former ranking back after you have an injury. You come back, the rankings reflect your time off. So the fact that, that realistically you have an unranked fighter who's walking into a weight class above the weight class he retired in, getting an immediate shot at the title. It's purely a stunt for money. It's the same thing that they just did with McGregor fighting Mayweather. It's purely a money issue. We feel, I'm sure the UFC feels, that more individuals are willing to buy that ticket between Bisping and St. Pierre than between Bisping and Rockhold. And so it's frustrating, but at the same time, if you're in the fight game, you get how it works. If you sell tickets, you're more of a commodity than a guy who wins fights.
How do you think that fight goes?
I think Bisping has just been busier of late, and I don't think that St. Pierre has a stand-up really to deal with Bisping's stand, who's a busy guy who's hard to take down, hard to hold down. St. Pierre's not known as a power puncher. I think that I actually think St. Pierre's going to the Bisping will end up beating him. Just outpointing him and just slapping him around for 5 rounds.
Just outboxing him, basically, outstriking him?
Yeah. Superior footwork, angles. I mean, Bisping's a really good martial artist.
Yeah.
Great movement, great hands, great feet, well-rounded, and I think that he'll just be able to busy him. And I don't think that, St. Pierre has been out for a while. Ring rust, timing, nerves. And stylistically, I don't think it's a great fight for him to move up to. He's actually going to have to move up a weight class where he was a very big welterweight during his career and very powerful, and his wrestling was so dominant, it scared people that then he had such great timing off his striking with that. But a lot of his style worked very well because of his explosiveness and the size that he was able to carry at welterweight. He perfectly fit that weight class. He didn't have to cut too much weight, and him cutting down the optimal amount, he was still healthy and able to fight and force on. I just don't see, especially now, you got to remember the judging criteria is different now. It's no longer just, he took him down, he won the round. Now, if you don't do damage and it's effective striking, effective grappling, they come into criteria first. And I think with that new judging format, I don't think that St. Pierre's style is going to do as well.
Yeah, it's I think it's kind of there's a couple of safety features built in here for the UFC depending on the outcome of the fight, because if Bisping beats St. Pierre, like you say, then, okay, well, he went up in weight. Bisping's, a natural middleweight, and now St. Pierre can go back down to welterweight where he reigns supreme. But I think if St. Pierre were to win, then you've got, a returning superstar who, maybe has been away for enough years now that you're going to have to remind some people, maybe some younger fans, of who he is. Well, now he's wearing gold. Now he's an instant champion and comes in and, takes that middleweight title. So maybe that helps with the trajectory of it. And then it also gives the UFC a chance to see how he looks. Because if he's going to get, I don't want to say exposed, but if he's, maybe if there is some ring rust to shake off there and stuff like that, it can be done outside of his natural division so that we don't see him lagging as a welterweight and then be as focused on, oh my gosh, he's not going to be the same threat to the welterweight division that he once was before. Does that make sense? It'll provide a little bit of cover for that.
No, and that part I think smart about it. I think that that it's being a matchup made purely for entertainment purposes, and the contingency plans either way, I think, give the guys somewhere to go. You're right. They have something to work with. St. Pierre comes out, loses. They have Bisping still as the champ, who I think is very marketable. And then if he is able to pull off the win, he's back in the picture.
Now, the real item of intrigue on this card may be the co-main event, which is finally we're going to get to see the UFC bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt take on TJ Dillashaw. This fight was originally supposed to happen over the summer, and Garbrandt got injured. So now we'll see it in November. I know you and I have shared a lot of thoughts on previous podcasts about that fight, Frank, but I can't remember a fight that you and I have ever talked about that we discussed so many different scenarios, talked about how competitive we both think it's going to be. I mean, that seemed like that, and nothing's changed. I mean, I think as we get closer to it, we could probably talk more about it, but, I don't remember there being a fight in recent memory that I was both that looking forward to, but also that perplexed as to, all the different ways it could go.
I agree with you. I think it's super interesting. I'm finally glad that it's going to finally come to fruition. I think that the backstory behind it, the build-up between the coaching, the former, Dillashaw being a part of one camp, leaving, now Cody Garbrandt, being, and then the whole factor of the history behind it, and styles. I just think that it's a very intriguing fight that has so many different angles and depth to it.
Now, this is the one that just got added to this card, a third title fight. Women's strawweight champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk is going to defend her title against Rose Namajunas. This may be the sleeper fight of the whole card, too. I mean, I think Garbrandt and Dillashaw is going to be awesome, but as soon as I heard this fight was made, this is as far as women's fights go, I'm probably looking more forward to this one than I have anyone in quite some time.
Yeah, man, Joanna Jędrzejczyk is such a dominant fighter that honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she just if Rose is being finished by Joanna, in 3 rounds. And it's nothing against Rose; it's just that Joanna's just on a different level.
Well, and that may be the case, but as scrappy as Rose Namajunas is, and also I think an improved striker as well. She's a fighter who hasn't just stayed stagnant, since she debuted in the UFC. I think it's kind of been the opposite of that. I don't think it's all fighters that you can look at and say that they're pretty much just the same way as they were when they came in. But with her, it has been interesting to track her progress. Her losses in the UFC have come to Carla Esparza. She was submitted by Esparza. That was the initial UFC women's strawweight fight. And then Carolina Kowalkiewicz. Oh, damn it. Sounding like you, Frank. Carolina Kowalkiewicz. Yeah. She lost a split decision to her in a fight of the night performance, but she looked great against Michelle Waterson in her last fight, and that was her first fight back in almost a year. So if she looks anything like she did against Waterson, it could be a very competitive night. We kind of moved on past this weekend's fights, but you made mention of the main event, and you said you saw 3 rounds of it. Yeah, I mean the 5-round affair was very technical. It was one of those fights where it was tough to score, I think. It resulted in a split decision for Nunes. I actually had it going the other way. I had it like Tony Weeks did, 48-47 for Shevchenko, although I'm not sure we gave her all the same rounds. There were a couple of takedowns in the 5th round, and that definitely solidified it for Nunes. But I wanted to ask your thoughts on this, because what Shevchenko was doing was she was executing a game plan of counterpunching, which that's one of her strengths, but she was doing it a lot of the time with her back up against the cage and kind of anticipating the strike in order to counter strike. So in other words, spending very little time in the fight actually pressing the action. And if you're scoring based on octagon control, that was definitely in favor of Nunes. I know from a grappling standpoint.
But we don't score that way anymore, though, right?
Well, you mean in terms of the control being a factor? I mean, control.
Yeah, control.
Well, control is still.
Well, first.
Go ahead.
Well, it goes in there, but as far as I know, that we go effective striking.
Yeah.
And the first thing we look at, if we're talking about striking, on the criteria or effective grappling, those are the first two things they look at, right? Then they go up on about the effectiveness of it. So basically, if you hit me with 3 jabs, but I hit you with a left hook, and I rock you, your head snaps back, I'm winning. My striking is more effective than yours. Whether I'm moving backwards, I'm moving forward, whether I'm on my back, who cares where I'm at? My strike caused more damage. Then if once that criteria is, let's say it's dead even, I think then they go to the next one where it's, okay, well, quantity. Who hit who more? Okay, if neither one really did damage, who landed more shots? You know, and then so I think they've kind of eliminated the whole octagon like aggressiveness moving forward. They're like, you can move forward the whole time. If the other guy is hitting you, that's what counts.
Yeah, and it also is one of those styles, I think, that I always think of it a little bit like when you're trying to, you know, recognize, give credit where credit's due for guys, you know, like working off their back. You know how rare it is that we'll see a fighter who may actually win a fight off of their back by being more active, but a lot of times a judge won't see it that way. I think that the same challenge naturally occurs when counterpunchers are employing their game and the opponent looks more aggressive, even though you know they themselves might be stifled a bit by the counterpunching approach.
Yeah. Well, the first 3 rounds I watched, I thought Shevchenko was winning.
Yeah. Okay. So did you give her all 3 rounds or 2?
I don't think I gave her the first round because pretty much nothing happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, at least Nunes was moving forward. So I'm like, all right, I can't go off of who. Neither one landed an effective strike. I don't think anyone even landed a strike from what I remember. I was like, well, Amanda looks like she's trying to make the fight. She's trying to move forward. So I guess I'll give it to her. But then in the second and third rounds, before I left the lounge, I was watching them all. I actually think that Shevchenko's winning. You know, I'm like, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, for every one punch that Amanda was throwing at her to come in, Shevchenko would make her miss and then hit her 2 or 3 times and then fade out. I'm all, okay, you know, like if you're really watching and not going off of who's going first, but who's actually landing their knuckles on the other person's face, it's like, well, you know, Shevchenko is actually, you know, according to that thought process, she's winning.
Yeah.
It wasn't a barn burner. I can see that we could break it down. It's one of those we could probably watch this fight probably 4 or 5 times together and go, well, did you see this? Oh yeah, and actually I didn't notice that. You know, like so. I mean, and a judge has seconds to go ahead and render their decision points each round. But you know, I can see a strong argument for why Shevchenko, from what I see in if 4 and 5 looked very similar to 2 and 3, I thought that, you know, a strong argument made that Shevchenko was winning.
Yeah, and you're right about the new rules. I was just looking up some stuff here online that you know, if damage is not done when you're either taking down an opponent or striking, but you know strikes are missing or whatever, or you know octagon control, but you're not doing anything with it per se, then that is not to be scored favorably. So yeah, I mean, just because
so Amanda Nunes moving forward, if she's not landing punches, there's no damage being done.
Right, she's got to be doing something.
That's the thing I want to keep doing, and I missed it last time just because my schedule with the ACB. But I want to sit down, and I think you and I both need to with McCarthy or with Dean, one of the guys that put on the shows. I think John, Big John, puts on also refereeing, but also does a judging criteria.
Yeah.
So that way, when you and I are sitting here talking, it's funny because, you know, I've talked to him and he's told me that Joe Rogan, half the shit he says isn't right when he gives his opinion on what's going on here and there, because he doesn't even understand the rules. Where McCarthy will listen to it and go, man, that's not how it works.
Well,
this is how I can't believe.
Yeah, and no, I was going to say, we're still in a time where that scoring criteria is still changing from event to event because not all states, not all countries are adhering to the same standard.
Yeah, so I think that maybe you and I both.
Yeah.
Because right now, I was telling you off the cuff, from just talking to John, because he comes to the ACBs, and I remember there was a fight going on, and I was like, well, I can see it going that way. He goes, no, I don't care how much the other guy is moving forward. The other guy landed 25 punches to the other guy's face, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I don't give it. And John said that. He goes, it doesn't matter if you're upside down, on your back, on your head. If the other guy is not hurting you and you're hurting him, you're winning the fight because damage is the first criteria. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. So it's one of those things where I want to officially take the judging course so you and I can really pick out what's going on, because as much as I think I know about MMA, sometimes the rules and the regulations and the judging criteria, I'm not as intelligent as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Or at least knowledgeable.
Tell them or Herb or whoever's got the next one coming up, tell them we want to go to their judging referee school camp thing that they do. That'd be really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you and I would both really enjoy it and see things, because just me commentating now for the ACB, I've now changed. I can't wait till I start fighting again, where I'm like, oh, I don't have to worry. It's changed my thought process on the whole wrestling thing, where I'm like, well, if you take me down, who cares? As long as all of a sudden I throw you in an arm bar and I throw you in a triangle and you're struggling to get out and you can't ground and pound me, I'm winning. And the judges are going to give me the score because they're like, well, the guy took you down. Yeah, but who cares? It's what did you do once you guys hit the ground? And if the guy on the bottom is throwing up submissions and the guy on top is just surviving, barely landing any punches from top, the guy on bottom's winning, So it takes away that whole this isn't just a wrestling match anymore. It's actually who's trying to win the fight by submission, by striking, by punching you in the face, kicking you in the leg. All right, well, I'm trying to win. I'm not just trying to push you against the cage and hug on you.
Yeah. You know how you could help educate the fans and the judges and all that is while you're fighting, while the fight is going on, just go ahead and simultaneously fight and commentate, and we can see how much of it gets picked up on the mics. You can plead your case.
Yeah, I'll pick up a earpiece that we can run it up the back, see if it holds during the fight.
Yeah, I like it. All right, speaking of fighting over there in Bellator, as you will be doing come the early part of 2018, I know you're always up for a stupid bank robber story. This is one of these rare instances where worlds collide. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but one of the Bellator fighters has been implicated in a bank robbery. Sergio Da Silva, who I believe fights over there he's either I think he's a featherweight. It's like a featherweight or a bantamweight, one of the two. He lives in Queens, Frank, and he's accused of robbing a Citibank on August 24th. He was wearing a ski mask. He got about $50,000. The problem is the bank was just around the corner from his house, and he left his fingerprints at the scene, and they tracked him via fingerprint. So hopefully your Bellator career is going to go better than his.
Right. But I mean, the bank's around the corner. How they know that he doesn't, has he not been in there before ever? So. Yeah, no, I'm sure those. And then after they let him out, wasn't he out just shopping?
He was. Yeah, you don't want to just sit on that. What's the fun of having the cash if you don't go out and have a little fun with it? No, you're right. I mean, I'm sure a good defense lawyer is going to make that argument that hey, he's been in the bank before, and of course his fingerprints are on the pin or whatever. But I think he'd only had I looked it up. I think he'd only had one fight over in Bellator, so wasn't exactly a cornerstone of the promotion. but he may be out of action for a little bit. All right. So what's the next couple of days look like for you over there? What's the plan?
We got some fly fishing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, I have to take Bella hunting because Cage and her both went when I went to the winery or the whiskey tour, and Cage, they took them hunting because they can eat the deer here. They cleaned it already and prepped it. So my children, because we do eat meat, I like the fact they understand where it comes from, and not just have that real absent mindset that it's something, that was not at one point a living animal, living, So that being said, they went hunting, and Cage shot a deer, his first deer shot, 178 meters. He took the shot and he popped it, killed it right through the heart. No suffering. Now the animal, is going to be tomorrow's dinner. But if Bella doesn't get a deer, we're all in trouble.
Oh, that's that competitive nature kicking in, huh?
Oh man, she walked in the room and it was like hell had frozen over.
Okay, so here's a hypothetical for you. Speaking of your teenage daughter, because Mrs. Meir and I were discussing this on an episode maybe a month or so ago. Whenever she said one of the episodes where she sat in, you were traveling, and it was right about the time of the electric Daisy Carnival. Do you know what that is?
I'm aware of it.
Okay, so like I can already hear the trepidation in your voice.
Yes.
So
my daughter and the Electric Daisy concert in the same sentence has already got my stomach.
Right. Well,
up.
Mrs. Meir made it abundantly clear that, there was no way that Bella would ever be allowed to attend something like that while, until she's an adult.
Look, there are parents that give their children some freedoms out there that I don't agree with because there are a lot of predators out there. And Bella can, I give her and my children have a reasonable amount of freedom, but with me, with still the cautiousness that there are some people out there that are not wired right and have some ill intentions. Mm-hmm. So with that taken into consideration, when I see the way that some parents will allow their 14-year-old daughter to go to an electric concert where everybody is known to be drunk and high, and then on top of that dress them up like some 18 to 21-year-old whore, I'm like, that's like basically me letting my kids walk down where I know there's lions, and on top of not being there to supervise, I'm going to tie a stake to their ass. I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me. I don't think that I'm a helicopter parent. I'm not overbearing. I'm just trying to be aware and cautious that there are, I have my mother, 911 operator. She's going to probably retire from that. Father was a police officer before he moved into, security at the hotels and the corporate world. I have friends still in the department. I'm very aware of what is capable of humans. And so I don't know if people are naive. They don't care. I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Well, the reason I bring it up is because, first of all, I don't know if this helps your decision or not, but next year EDC is going to move to May to avoid all of the hot summers. So it's going to be a little more comfortable than it is now when I think they do it in July. But that is kind of the big southern Nevada freak show event every year. But, up north in the Black Rock Desert, they have Burning Man. Now, I've been to Burning Man.
That's something actually, now as an adult, I would be interested. We got to go one year. I would like to go.
Yeah, I think you would find it interesting.
41 year people watch. That seems like a good people watching place.
It's a great place. Particularly,
it would have been a great people watching place just a couple days ago.
It sure would have been when 41-year-old Aaron Joel Mitchell just decided to up and run right into the flames of the actual Burning Man. Where it gets its name is they erect this giant wooden stick figure looking guy. And they set it on fire at the end of the festival, and it's a big ceremonial thing. And I guess one of the guys Aaron was just so excited that he just ran right into the flames and just burned him up to a crisp. Just nature took its course and didn't take long, and he's dead. So
what pisses me off about that, to be honest with you?
What?
that I've seen the firefighters chase him down and pull him out of the fire.
Yep.
To me, if you're a moron,
right?
Like, if I have to put a fence around a fucking burning statue to keep people out, then I'm like, I'm one of those people who be like, hey, look, you know what? We're probably better off without these people in our breeding pool. You know what I mean? Like, if you're willing to run into a flaming fire, well, let's hope you die. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, I know you're someone's kid, but let's just be serious. Can't nerf the world, right?
Well, you can't. I think it's an.
But what if one of the firefighters would have got hurt?
No, I understand.
Do you know what I mean? Like, somebody, you know, they're there to risk their lives, but to try to save people that don't want to die. You know, like if my house lights on fire, I don't want to die. I want someone to come help me and save my children if I'm not able to help myself. You know, but if you're willing to run into a house that's on fire at a party and just, you know, in a building, you know, the Burning Man, the firefighter, I don't think has an obligation to risk his life for you.
Yeah, I think it's an exercise in futility when you start trying to do combat with the process of natural selection. You know, it's kind of
just like, you know.
Yeah, it's just kind of Darwinian, isn't it? Like the forces of that sometimes are too strong for us to reason with. No, I'm with you there. So here's why I brought it up. Here's the hypothetical for you. She's gonna go to one. If she had to go to, you have no way of preventing it. It's one or the other. Which one do you go with? Burning Man or EDC for your teenage daughter?
I'm probably saying this purely out of ignorance of Burning Man, but I think that I would avoid the EDC because I know what the raves are like. You know, I've seen that crew in and out of the club throughout the years I worked as a bouncer. You know, that's just, I don't know, too young of a group of people, and I think that it draws more predators.
No, you know what? I think you're right. And the reason I think you're right, too, not that, you know, Burning Man wouldn't have its share of knuckleheads as well. And I'm speaking of ignorance the other direction because I've been to Burning Man, but I haven't been to EDC. But here's what I know about Burning Man. It's a multi-generational event, so it's not all just younger people, you know, like if anything really not cool were to happen or have the potential of happening, there's going to be adults around who will probably think better of the situation and deal with it appropriately. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the adults at EDC, like, I don't know. And I've already told the kids, you know, well, we had that concert, the Rock in Rio, and, you know, Bella and her girlfriend wanted to go see because Taylor Swift was going to have an appearance on stage, and you know, so we made sure we went up to the VIP area, and I got an overlook over the area. I talked to her that if anything went off, everybody starts, you know, storming. You guys will meet you here. We'll go there. About every 15 minutes, I'm standing up there, you know, so I'm trying to give my daughter freedom, but she has her phone on her, so she knows to put the flashlight on her phone. If I text, hey, update me, because if I lost her in the crowd, so I just sat there and watched. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so I think if my daughter or she wants to go to the EDC or she wants to go with the Burning Man, looks like we're going to go, girl.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll probably bring my new friend Corey with me, so that way he can be up and a lookout real high with a rifle.
Yeah.
Just plugging dudes. Yeah. Any scumbag comes up to her, make his last 3 steps.
we could have a lot of fun at Burning Man. This is coming from a straight edge guy. Like, people always talk about, you know, drugs that people do or whatever, but I had fun there completely straight and sober. So I recommend it.
Okay.
It's been a few years.
Yeah, I don't think it ever. I don't know. The EDC just. You know, and I'm being ignorant. I haven't gone to one. I'm just going off of the people that I see dressed up, ready to go. And I'm just like, you know, I guess I'm starting to transition to that grouchy old guy where I'm just like shaking my head going, fuck, really? You know, like, you know, and then when I see guys my age going, you know, dressed up, I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, I'm like, you know what? We need to take a picture of you because you should be on a list somewhere because I don't know. You realize it's all like young kids going, you know, like, why do you want to go?
See, it's funny how we look at things because, you know, you would be concerned with your daughter's safety. I would be concerned what EDC would do to her musical tastes. Like, I'm more concerned about damage being done there.
Yeah. Well, at least we got the full gambit covered. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. That's right. Between the two of us, we would make awesome co-parents. All right, let's put a wrap on this one, Frank. I'll give you a moment to talk to everybody about that Amazon banner that's right there on the front of phoneboothfighting.com. Sure, you can get all your official show merchandise on the website. Sure, you can find all of our previously aired and archived episodes, but that Amazon banner on the front of our website serves a special purpose. What exactly is that?
Well, it's one of the easiest ways that people can help us out by contributing to the show. Any shopping you normally do for your wants and needs on Amazon, just click through our banner to do so. And then at no extra charge to you, a small percentage goes back to us from Amazon that we can use towards the improvement of our show.
That's what you do. Phoneboothfighting.com is the website. Click through that Amazon banner, shop as you would otherwise, and benefit us in the process. We certainly do appreciate it.
You notice that picked up as the show went on?
Yes, I did notice that a little bit. Yeah, what happened
The
there?
whiskey wore off.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, I was a little lightheaded when I first sat down when you were talking to me. Like, I'm sitting there going, so everybody's listening to the show going, Frank seemed a little distracted. I was not very sober.
Yeah, okay. Well,
in the last half hour, I've kind of come back to life. I'm like, damn, that whiskey's strong.
That's true. You did pick it up. Boy, that and a little stimulating conversation and
yeah, my old friend Richie, man.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I wish I was there in the 15th century Scottish castle with you. That sounds like a lot of fun over there.
You would have fun. Maybe the next time it's coming, you can come with us because, like, even the stalk, chasing the deer down. I know you as a vegan, that's not your social or your culinary belief.
Wouldn't have had a part of that.
Well, no, actually, one of the ladies is of same makeup as you. She went along just because she wanted to go on a nature hike, so she can go and chase the deer down and not shoot one, but take pictures and then just was able to separate from the group and enjoyed very much of a nature experience.
Yeah, I would have been trying to warn the deer ahead of time. I would have been shooing them off. Like, I would have taken the.
No, I know what you're doing. They'd have been like, "Hey, man, your friend Richie knows how to play the bagpipes." I'm like, "Nah, he's just trying to scare the deer off."
Exactly.
He's trying to save them.
That's exactly right. Well, I quote the Bill Maher joke in those instances. Is it really a sport if one of the teams doesn't know the game is being played?
You know what? If you're going to, and this is my thought process, if you're not a vegetarian and you are going to eat meat, I think you're entitled, and you have to. In fact, everybody in my family has killed an animal now, except for Ronan, the youngest. If you choose that lifestyle that you're going to have meat in your diet at some point, I think that you have an obligation to have the respect of where it comes from. And if you're not willing to kill, then you shouldn't deserve to eat.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. And that's, it's the same reason why, and it's a valid thing to point out whenever somebody, talks about not eating meat and somebody says, or not hunting rather, I should say, and somebody says, the natural progression of the counter argument is, oh, but you eat the meat that comes from the grocery store, okay? And then if somebody says, well, no, I don't, they say, oh, but what about that leather belt you're wearing, and that's why I don't wear any leather. That's why I don't eat any animal product, because it is important. And I think that's a valid 100%. Argument that can be made.
Wow.
So,
and if you're going to eat, honestly, as morbid as it sounds, if you told me I became the food source for a superior species, and if I had to live as a cattle that was just bred just to be slaughtered, and I lived in a farm like that, where I could be an animal out running around like trying to survive, I would choose the later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just like we were talking about not interfering with the process of natural selection at Burning Man. I apply the same thing to the whole ecosystem and food chain. So, but I do think that if you're going to do that, and if that is part of your diet, then better to at least understand where it comes from. That's a good point. Sort of the same.
Much more respect.
Sort of the same approach I take to growing vegetables, Frank. I think it's important for me to grow those vegetables so I can appreciate where they come from. I actually want to do that.
Actually, you know what? This is maybe a really funny question.
Yeah.
I just kind of thought of it right now. Like, people care about the trees, right?
Yes.
Like, you have the feeling of saving the forest, but a tree is just basically a plant that we don't eat.
Well, but they help create oxygen.
Oh, okay, but I thought maybe you wanted because the tree has a life and feelings and all that shit, right?
Oh, no. I draw a line at a central nervous system. If you're,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
because some people will go, oh, but what about, a plant is alive or something like that. So, no, I mean, it's not, and
fish don't feel pain. Are you okay with that then? Because they're not set up the same way as most like mammals are. Where a mammal, could suffer, the fish, as far as what I understand, aren't wired that way.
I think a fish would feel that it was suffocating, though, wouldn't it?
Is it feeling, or is it? I don't know. We're gonna get into fucking science.
Yeah,
I'll research this, and we're gonna have a talk on the next.
Okay, all right, very good. Maybe we'll get a
because honestly, like I'm just posing questions, and I have no answers. So
no, maybe we'll get a fish representative on to clarify this for us. All right, you can follow us on social media. There's a little bonus content for you. You can follow us. It's like an encore. It's like we said goodnight, walked off stage, and then we came out and played one more tune.
It's kind of like our conversations. I follow you outside. You're trying to walk to your car, and I'm still talking to you about shit.
That's true.
The wife's like, "It's fucking 1 a.m. Get to bed. You've been on the air for 3 hours."
Oh, you know what? I never thought about that. You know what we could do? That would actually be a good thing to put on Patreon. Is the walk out to the car. A little bonus content over there. We could do that.
Yeah, but that's usually when you give me life advice.
No, yeah.
I don't know if I need everybody hearing that.
No, it's true.
They'll know all my deep, dark secrets.
Yeah, you're right. Something needs to stay private. All right, very good. All right, you can follow us on social media. Frank, tell everybody how they can find the show.
Well, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, it's Phone Booth Fighting. And if you follow us just on Snapchat or Twitter, it's Phone Booth Fight.
Yep, that's it. We are, of course, available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever podcasts are available. If you go on our iTunes page and search Phone Booth Fighting MMA, please take a moment to give us those 5 stars. Click on the 5-star review. That helps us a lot. If you have a moment, write a favorable line or two. For Frank Mir, I'm Richard Hunter, and we will see you next time right here on Phone Booth Fighting.